Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Radio Retro Future, where I am talking with Eric Fisk of the Fedora Chronicles about Stranger Things. And Eric is a little bit sick, so you'll just have to excuse him for tonight. So, yeah, Eric, what was your first impression of Stranger Things?
Before we go any further, I really have to apologize because the reason why we are so late is because I have some kind of infection and is just not letting go. And I raced over here with 6 inches of snow on the ground, risking life and limb to try and get back here in time to record. So the reason why this is late, it's because of me. But if you want me to tell you about what I thought of Stranger Things, is that the people who made this film, they got everything right. If you grew up in the 1980s, this is exactly what it looked like, from the costuming to the props, even way down to, and I know that they probably filmed it on digital, but they got the film stock look right. It is exactly the way life was way back when. And for me, it was like a sentimental journey. We did the entire show, one episode a night throughout the entire run. So we did the entire one episode of a night this past summer. I thought it was so incredibly well done and a perfect tribute to, the Stephen King and John Carpenter works from the 1980s. How about you? What did you think about it?
Well, like you said, it had that feeling of those 80s flicks. Like, if I would say, where does it draw its inspiration from? The Goonies. It also has many of those cliches, but it does a very unique twist with them. Let's take a schlock movie like Dead Snow. Got the typical teenagers locked in a cabin, and they're all douchebags doing things they shouldn't be doing in the most annoying kind of way that you really want to see these people die, basically. and here they have such characters as well, especially the boyfriend character, Zuckerman, I think his name was.
The rich kid.
The rich kid. They take a twist with him, like he does some jerk things, but they don't go all overboard like he's this unreasonable asshole. No, he's the normal guy. He's the normal teenager that, well, basically acts like a normal teenager would in the situations where he's in. Like the older brother character takes photographs of his house while his girlfriend is undressing. You would get pissed off about something like that. Was he going overboard in his reaction? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Is it unreasonable?
No.
No. They could have done so many wrong things with that character, but instead, one of the final scenes where he's being put in the situation where he finds out what's going on. He's like, oh my god, this is insane. I want to get out of here. Oh no, wait, maybe I should help. He's really that character that doesn't know what's going on. He isn't told everything that he should be knowing, and he has this redeeming moment. I like how realistic the characters are. I think that's the thing that it corrects on many of the cliche horror movies out there.
Right down the line, you could have had all of these characters who could have been your stereotypical characters. They would have done everything that a person would have done in that stereotype. And then there were some people who really sort of surprised you, and really sort of like, if life was a horror movie, I would be like the scientist boyfriend or something like that. My wife would probably be the hero of the story, like Friday the 13th. And it was just like, there were some people went to a certain line where they were supposed to act and behave, and then they crossed the line. And a lot of people sort of, I don't really think that the jock would act like that. I don't think the jock would stick around at the very end and, to see how things worked out. I think that he would have gotten his sports car and ran back home to his parents' Frank Lloyd Wright knockoff wannabe house. And the idea that the jock hung out with his girlfriend and her friend, just a friend, I don't even know what you'd call him, from the wrong side of the tracks guy, who just wants to know, like, where did his brother go and where did like, what's going on here. I think that was very interesting, whereas everybody in some way, shape, or form sort of like became sort of like their own hero, not the hero of the show, but everybody who was on the side of the kids, everybody who was trying to, like, because I mean, the kid who was Oh, I'm trying to figure out. Just I'm looking at here, and I'm looking at the kid who was, um, I think Will Byers, who was. I mean, was he abducted and sent to this other dimension? If people don't know, and I think that it's we haven't said enough about this yet. I don't think the major plot of the entire thing is that there is a government agency acting as if it's a branch of the Department of Energy has been conducting strange experiments. All we know that is that they're doing something weird, and over the course of the first couple of episodes, we only see glimmers of the experiments that this phony government agency has been working on. And it turns out it was like they're playing with these doors to these alternate dimensions, whereas it's a nightmare version of where we live right now, something like that. And it's an alternate dimension where some kind of like giant living fungus has taken over everything. And of course, the thing is that there's at least one monster. I mean, there's a monster in the sense of there's this guy who will do just about anything to get to the bottom of what this mystery is. But there's the real, the other monster is like this creature that looks like it's out of a child's nightmare, and that child has been brought up on horror movies like The Thing from the 1980s. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, we see posters to such movies all throughout the series in the background. Leads have seen The Thing, some Stephen King movies, posters in there as well.
This is a hard thing for people to sort of understand. It's a tribute and it's a satire and it's a salute all at the same time.
Yeah.
Stephen King, John Carpenter movies. And the thing is that it's also very subversive. I don't know if you remember so many of the movies in the 80s that were very sort of subversive. It was all about some government agency or some government agent is trying to take something from the realm of the supernatural and trying to weaponize it. Another perfect example is Stephen King's The Dead Zone, where this guy wakes up from a coma and he has the ability to look into the future. And of course, there's somebody who gets a hold of this guy from the government and he tries to weaponize this guy's abilities. Get back to The Thing for a second. The thing is that some government said, hey, there's this thing buried up in the ice. Go see what it is and bring it back. And obviously it's like the Norwegian government, if you've seen the movie. So these Americans, hey, we haven't heard from our Norwegian counterparts for a while. Let's see what's gone over there. Oh, everybody's dead and everybody's gone except for this dog. Well, let's bring the dog back. That makes sense, right? And it is so much of that. The government is doing something wrong, and it's the civilians who get caught up in this, and because they get caught up in this, they say, "Oh, to hell with that," and somehow bring it to an end somehow, some way. And it's also sort of like a perfect nod to the post-Watergate era and the Iran-Contra era, where everything was just sort of like, don't trust your government. And the X-Files sort of picked up on that for a little bit.
But we're talking too. But it's also, there's Project Girl 11, stemmed from MK Ultra, I think. Those stories took their own lives in the time. And, people are still talking about MK Ultra and Manchurian candidates.
Or you can call them MK slaves. We're actually, Walt Schnabel and I have been working on this exact topic. It's the CIA, DARPA, mind control. The truth is definitely stranger than fiction. Annie Jacobson has done a great series of books, and I'm right in the middle of the second one that I picked up of hers, called The Pentagon's Brain. It talks about DARPA and a lot of these secret programs, these things that go on that, granted, it began with the end of World War II and the development of the atomic bomb. But then, of course, the thing is, it was just like, listen, if you have a government has projects out in the middle of the desert and they're ultra top secret, it becomes a cottage industry. And these people who are hiding out in the desert, and the government who had these people hiding out in the desert, developing this atomic weapon, you have to ask yourself, do you really believe that after that atomic weapon was developed and used, they stopped? There are still things going on in Los Alamos, not far from where the original nuclear bombs were developed. There's an aspect of Stranger Things that in many ways is also inspired by real events where there are government organizations and private organizations, and they have these installations out in the middle of nowhere and nobody knows what they're doing. The only way that you can get in or out is by hiking a couple of miles through the worst terrain you can imagine, or you got to get there by helicopter. And what are they doing there?
Yeah. Well, and it's a very topical subject. I mean, you've got like Pizzagate and Golden Showergate brings all these kinds of strange ideas into the world. People react to these. This theory might actually have sparked a renewed interest in MK Ultra. So who knows what kind of strange ideas people will find on the internet when they are researching MK Ultra. There are a lot of conspiracies from, the Reich that are still being investigated, like the Vril Society. So the whole satanic panic of the 80s, which maybe in the second season they'll pick up on something like that. Who knows?
Yeah. Because the thing is that the monster from Nathan Modine's character is the monster, as it were. Is it really a monster?
Well, it's more of a predator, isn't it? And it appears to... He doesn't hunt humans to feed on them. Because
Right.
we see him feed on a deer at one point.
Yeah.
That the monster drags into the other dimension. But he doesn't do the same with humans, or at least the humans that we have seen. So who knows how many... I think they state at one point more people disappeared.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to those humans. We know what happened to two of them. The monster is just a predator, really.
Yep.
It just, it smells blood, literally. He hunts wounded prey. He doesn't go for the strong. He doesn't go for the young. No, he goes for wounded prey. Roadkill.
Whoever or whatever is bleeding. It doesn't differentiate.
I mean, the obvious monster are the government people, or at least we presume. Yeah, they're pretty much government. I mean, they are supported by the army, so you can't get more government than that. That kind of bothered me. The ending was a little bit. They treated the monster kind of like a Deus Ex Machina by the end. Tied out all the loose ends, really quickly and tidy. Then only they leave a few short scenes that imply they're working on the second season and that some characters might return. So it's very curious what kind of monster will be stalking the town next, because it's implied that the monster might return as well in a next generation, so to speak. Yeah.
The monster's already there. Listen, one of the things I really wanted to get into really quickly again, you were talking about MK Ultra.
Yeah.
And I think isn't it amazing how things just sort of like it's synchronicity. And the thing is that I have been doing research on the entire notion of these black ops CIA programs, and I got a list here for you. I'm just going to read you off four things here. Obviously, we're talking about MK Ultra, which is the umbrella for all of these really strange mind control programs. And then they had underneath that Operation Midnight Climax. This sounds like a funny horror movie from the 80s where they would abduct men using prostitutes to lure them to a black ops site and do experiments on them for a couple of days before releasing them back into the public. Operation Artichoke, which is where they had sort of like the enhanced interrogations here, and it was also that was born out of this Project Bluebird. And then you have the Operation Stargate Project, which is it's from Fort Meade, Maryland, by the Department of Defense Intelligence Industry, where they were also trying to sort of get people in, try and get into people's heads. Mm-hmm. And then they have this program called Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA had infiltrated the mainstream media to manufacture consent, whereas we're going to report the news in such a way to get you revved up and ready to go for the next big war coming soon to a neighborhood near you, World War III, brought to you by the mainstream media and the CIA.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and you look and you list all this, but this is only the stuff that we know about. And a lot of the stuff came out in the church committee back in the mid 70s. That's only what we know. We don't even know what else that they're up to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, the CIA is really a loose cannon as that is concerned. And it's no wonder it inspires a lot of fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just it, isn't it? The truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. And, you know, as a writer, you just cannot make it up. So when you hear it, you immediately fictionalize it. So to see it come back in a thing like Stranger Things, because MK Ultra is just one of those names we see keep coming back in fiction, like spy series, horror movies, other science fiction-esque things. And MK Ultra. Oh, yo, that story about the LSD. Oh no, that was only a cover-up for a far more deeper plot. You know. So yeah, you really get the strangest things. And are you familiar with creepypastas?
I am. Let's get into that.
Yeah, because you could consider this a creepypasta. It's exactly one of those stories where they basically they are written by people, by fans of horror, and told as if they are really happening. When you look at Stranger Things, it would be a great creepypasta to tell about, I had a small brother and he disappeared one night and the police only found his bike in the woods. And when I started looking for it, I saw this faceless creature skulking around, and now the creature is stalking me in my own house. That's terrifying.
There's an aspect to this, and it was Winona Ryder, great actress from the 80s, as the mom of the boy.
Joyce, I think she's called.
Joyce. Joyce essentially quits her dead-end job, and she's hanging out at home, and she's trying to, because her boy's missing for crying out loud.
Oh yeah.
And she's distraught and she's upset. And the thing is that her son, disappears into this other realm, as it were. Will Byers is like he's stuck and he's being stalked by this monster, I guess. And the thing is that Will is hiding out in an alternate dimension, a different version of our own Earth. She's stuck at home. And I think that is tell me if I'm wrong, but the thing is that was she nominated for a couple of awards because of her betrayal of Joyce and the way that she was panicking at home, and she was like,
I think so, but the whole missing child aspect, I mean, it's really played like your typical child is missing drama, and it's done so really well, and it's kept at that level until she sees the lights flicker and she starts believing that her boy is in the house with her, only she can't see her and they can only communicate through the lights. From that point on, she really starts to spiral out of control, and everybody treats it, oh, this woman is being turned insane because her boy is missing. And meanwhile, she is writing the letters on the wall and getting all the lights from her employer and hanging her house with all the lights, and people are watching that like, this is a loon. You know, this is one of those people that believe that their kid is being abducted by aliens, and the aliens are trying to communicate with her with lights. And they really play that up really well. But finally, more and more people start to believe her. And that's also how they play up, like with the sheriff. Yeah. You know, this lazy sheriff that really doesn't give a damn. And then he realizes there's more going on. Then he really becomes just as obsessed with his new project, as it were. And, you know, he starts doing things, you know, starts investigating the government and all that jazz to see, because he also now believes there's a conspiracy. And then the brother realizes there is more going on than meets the eye, and he goes with, well, not his girlfriend, but his, let's call her the semi-love interest, which is also another one of those tropes they're playing with really well. They too, you know, they have their own agency, and finally these characters meet at the end to, find the boy and defeat the monster, all in their own ways and separated from one another. They join forces and yet they are separate. So that's, giving all the characters their own agency and their own victories, other than, one person is the hero, which usually is the case with horror movies like this. That's also something one trope they lure at happening, like, the boy is going to defeat the monster. No, actually it's a different team that defeats the monster.
Everybody had a couple of really great moments to shine in this. And that's why I think that it was just like, that's what a really great ensemble drama does, is that everybody is allowed to have their own scene, and everybody is able to, all the actors really had a great material to work with, and everybody had like that moment. And it's hard to sort of say with a show like this, who, with the exception of Joyce Byers, played by Winona Ryder, it's really hard to pick out somebody, just one person, who's a breakout in this show. Because the thing is that I don't know if you remember Barb. One of the girls who goes to this. It's not even a party. It's like a makeout session or whatever.
Yeah.
She goes to the rich kid's house, and she's bleeding, and she accidentally bleeds in the pool. And that's what attracts the monster to her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she becomes this sort of like this breakout character, and the audience is like, hey, don't forget Barb. Don't forget. That's one of the great things about this show, is that there is so many of those scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they did well with Barb. It is not like, she's just not a character that dies. What often happens, like, this character dies, and that's that. No death is wasted. It's no Game of Thrones, so to speak.
The people who do die, there is a consequence.
Yeah. I think that's something that this show does really well.
Anyway, what would you expect to see in Season 2 and in further seasons down the road?
I suspect that 11 will come back in one form or another, and Sheriff Hopper, he already knows more than the rest. He is involved now. We don't know what agency has approached him. We don't know what he knows, what other people do not know, but it has some connection with 11. Also begs the question, was the monster at the end of the season really destroyed or just banished to another dimension? Did she just close the gates, as it were, by transferring herself and the monster to another dimension, rather than, destroying herself with the monster? That's a possibility. And then, of course, there is the case of the missing boy, who's then returned to his family and is now barfing out larvae.
Yeah. So obviously, like, whatever, he brought something back from that other dimension. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah. It closed a lot of plots by killing a lot of the bad guys off, and then, throughout some lines, when, if we get renewed, this is something we'll go with. It's kind of like, are they going to continue the Dimension story, or are they going to turn it into a completely different genre of series, or are they gonna change inspirational sources here? So is it now going to be about shapeshifters, for example?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that sort of like surprised me the most is how this could have very easily have been at the end of the final episode. Bang, that's it, it's over. That's it, and it could have been like a standalone one thing, and it's everything's all sort of tidy up, except for like another fine example. Get back to The Thing, whereas it's like it's left with a cliffhanger. Who is really the alien, and who's the one who's the murderer or the monster or whatever. And with Stranger Things, it was like everything's sort of sewn up. In essence, life sort of gets back to normal, but not really. Things are a little better. Things are a little worse. 11 has disappeared out of everybody's life as if she was never there. But there's the question is she eating frozen waffles in this dimension or another dimension, or because that was a big thing. The girl had a thing for frozen waffles. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And the thing is she here? Is she there? Is she straddling the dimensions? And the thing is that it left it with a lot of more questions, and that's real life. Real life is not neatly sewn up, and
The only thing that kind of bothered me with the series was the boy communicating with the lights to his mother. I was kind of like, how does that work? That's never really explained. Because we know that when people move to the dimension and they go past points of electricity, the lights blink. But what I seen of it when Sheriff Hopper and Joyce moved to the dimension, they were not aware of what was going on in the other dimension on the same location. So now I'm kind of wondering, how did the boy know how to communicate with the lights?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is that he just did. Because here's one of the things is that it was just like George Lucas learned this out the hard way in Star Wars. If you try and explain something, like how are you able to use the Force? Oh, it's midichlorians. You take away some of the magic.
Yeah. People were really annoyed by that. Yeah.
You don't want to take all the magic away by explaining everything away. Mm-hmm. And the thing, and exactly what I think is that kept the magic going is that it left a lot of unexplained phenomenons left unexplained, and they did it in such a way whereas it was a good way to end the show with some unsolved mysteries, or it opened the door for what they could do with the next season. And it's amazing, whereas it was just like there were only 8 episodes, but the thing is that every episode is chock full of stuff. And there was one wasted episode. There's an aspect to this because the drama is so intense and the drama is so real because you care about these people. It gets exhausting really quick, and you are emotionally and if you binge watch this, you feel for Joyce because you're there with her, because you're invested in the characters. Mm-hmm. And it was like then they took the time to get you to invest in all the characters.
Yeah, I really liked how the Joyce and her family were portrayed, like really realistically as, like I said, a child gone missing drama, and the big brother starts blaming himself, and the mother, no, please don't do that. They're trying to stick together, or the mother trying to keep her family together. So they really do it very well, and I'm thinking about what else could be for season 2. I'm kind of reminded that he barfs out the larva in the sink. So I'm thinking about those stories about crocodiles in the sewer.
Yep.
That it's going to be something like that.
It is. It's going to. I mean, you know that there's going to be something about this. You know for a fact that's going to be the major plot hole. And the thing is that what happens when you have all of these demons bebopping around and abducting people and whatever. And I would not be surprised if our dimension, or the dimension where our characters come from, starts becoming just like the dimension where these creatures came from. I would not be surprised if you see, whole buildings and cars and stuff like that just gobbled up by the strange fungus and stuff.
Kind of like The Mist, which also is by Stephen King, or they could go a little bit more like the aliens of it, and the xenomorphs. Very good possibility, because they also have these hives, which they create in the colonies. So yeah, The Mist or aliens.
It's all awesome. Hey, listen. So anyway, before I let you go, because I'm getting to the point where I'm losing my voice.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting place to stop. If you're addicted to this kind of storytelling, what do you do after you watch Stranger Things, besides watching Stranger Things again? What would be a great thing to watch after this?
Well, I've been binge watching some anime as of late, and to also deal very much with human drama, as it were. And one of them is Death Parade. Which is about people who have died go to a kind of I'll call it a very short purgatory, where bartenders, of all people, have to decide whether you go to heaven or you go to hell. By trying to find out, they make these two souls play a game. Of course, the game is rigged, because the entire point of the game is not who wins, but what kind of persons they turn out to be at the end of the game. So that's Death Parade. There is a continuing story, but most of these conflicts only last one episode. These revelations are so intense by the end of the episode, they really get to you. So that's a series I could recommend. And the other one is Erased, which is kind of a time travel story, but it's also about children going missing.
Yeah.
And the main character goes back in time, prevent these children going missing and finding out who's abducting these children. Also a very psychological drama. It's also very heavy. It deals also with child abuse. So yeah, that's Erased. Really gripping story of a guy who tries to prevent things going awry by changing the past.
I think that for me, you can't go wrong with going back and watching the original movies made by John Carpenter, especially during the 70s and 80s. If you haven't seen it yet, see the original Halloween. That has a lot of spooky elements to it. Obviously, The Thing, which is, it's not the original, but it's the best incarnation of The Thing, and that was also by John Carpenter. If you can find it, because nobody has really done a great job making a really good Stephen King movie that is as good as his books. I'm sorry. I mean,
maybe the exception is The Mist.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it would be interesting for you and I to just go through and just talk about The Mist in some future episode.
I didn't like the ending though, but a lot of people prefer the ending of the movie over the ending of the book, including Stephen King.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the tropes from the movies they obviously borrowed for Stranger Things. Good, but just you can't go wrong with those two. So anyway, hey, listen, everybody, thanks for sticking with us and thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry that we started this late. I'm just going to say I'm just going to let my buddy here sign off, but I'm going to turn off right now, and I'm just going to wish everybody, have a good week, have a good weekend, and keep your chins up and your fedoras on.
Okay, thank you, Eric, for being here. And for all you listeners out there, of course, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Radio Retro Future, where we talked about Stranger Things. And, of course, as always, if you enjoyed this material, please give it a like. Please let us know what you thought of Stranger Things and what elements you enjoyed about this series. And, of course, make it your way.